South Carolina baseball has officially fired Mark Kingston. What's next for a once proud program, and what direction do Ray Tanner and the South Carolina Gamecocks go in? Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. We're brought to you by our friends over at RHOBACK. Guys, go to RHOBACK.com. Use promo code SECU to get 20% off your entire first purchase. Again, that's RHOBACK.com, promo code SECU to get 20% off today. It's officially official after weeks of speculation and, of course, a lot of conversation after South Carolina's quick exit in the Raleigh Regional, losing to James Madison yesterday in a shutout 2-0 to face elimination. South Carolina has officially parted ways with head baseball coach Mark Kingston, this coming via Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball this morning. It has since been confirmed by the South Carolina Baseball Twitter account and by the Gamecocks themselves. Big news as South Carolina looks to restore, really, truly, guys, a once proud program, right? You think about what South Carolina baseball was just a little bit over a decade ago, not that long ago, right? We're talking about a program that under now AD Ray Tanner, back-to-back national champions in 2010 and 2011, went to a national title game, could have won 3 in a row. Lots of folks do not give credit to or forget about that 2012 team. This is a program that was at the top of college baseball, one of the very best, one of the elites in the sport, and has since then taken all but a nosedive, right? Chad Holbrook hired back in 2013. He took over, and it felt like Chad Holbrook fell short of the standard, right? Did not get to Omaha. Also was not given that long of a leash, but it felt like he was handed the keys to a Ferrari and crashed it into a ditch, right? It was unacceptable. And the straw that broke the camel's back, I should say, when it comes to Chad Holbrook, was missing 2 postseasons in a 3-year span, right? 15 and 17, 2015, 2017. You had the super regional run, I believe, in 2016, but you missed the postseason in 15. You missed the postseason in 17, and that was enough to get Chad Holbrook fired. A 13 and 17 SEC record in that 2017 season and missing the postseason entirely. Then South Carolina hires Mark Kingston. And it was a questionable hire from the jump, but I think most people in Gamecock circles simply believe that, hey, this is Ray Tanner we're talking about making this hire. This guy knows baseball more than anybody else. He's crapped out more baseball than most people know, to put it bluntly, right? So I think the fan base trusted Ray Tanner when the hiring of Mark Kingston was made, even if the records right at South Florida were not glamorous. You thought, you know what? He's got to see something we don't, right? He's got to see something that to the common eye, we're not able to identify. And it looked like for a moment, he might be right? 2018, you make the super regionals. You're 1 win away from Omaha. After that, guys, the Mark Kingston era was marred with inconsistencies and shortcomings, whether it was the pitching staff, it was a lot of hitting woes. Then you go out after the 2022 season, which, guys, I've said before, and I'll say it again, I think that was the moment you knew you needed to move on from Mark Kingston. Either way, the program decides to bring him back, give credit. They went out to the transfer portal. They boosted the roster. They hired Monty Lee, which seemed like a great move at the time, and it did end up paying dividends, right? 2023 was a fantastic season. You go to the super regionals. You win your home regional in Columbia, something you hadn't done in quite a while. Ethan Petrie has a breakout year. The offense was much better. You were the number 1 team in the country for a couple weeks, so it looked like maybe, just maybe, that the hiring of Monty Lee had helped turn things around, and then the 2024 season happened. And, guys, this move on Mark Kingston, and just going over the records, guys, 7 years, 6 full seasons. a 217 and 155 overall record. That is a 58% winning percentage. And this is really the one that did him in. This is the thing, guys, that stands out to me. An 83 and 96 mark in SEC play. I mean, that right there, guys, just unacceptable. Unacceptable. And I know some people are going to look at this, they're going to hear me talk about this, and they're going to scoff because they're going to say, listen, stop living in the past. South Carolina baseball isn't what it used to be. And right now, that statement may be true, but we're not that far removed, guys. And it wasn't like South Carolina baseball had one small little pocket where they had a 3-year magical run. Guys, this goes back to the Bobby Richardson days in Columbia. This goes back to the June's Reigns days in Columbia. Like, this goes way further back than just Ray Tanner. And then when he took over this job in the late 90s, and I mean, guys, South Carolina baseball was a mainstay. I'm talking top 10, top 15 program at worst from the late 90s all the way up until I'd probably say 2014. That's when it really started to slip. But even Chad Holbrook was able to navigate the Gamecocks to 40-win seasons and get to the Super Regionals. And again, he was fired because you never want to be the guy that follows the legend. That was Chad Holbrook, I think, his biggest knock. I'm not saying that it was a bad move at the time, but looking back, my goodness, hindsight is 2020. With that being said, though, you got the losing SEC mark in 6 seasons. Obviously, no Omaha appearances. But, guys, I think the thing almost even more damning than the records, which were not great, more damning than the inconsistent play across the board, more damning than all that was Mark Kingston's lack of understanding of the standard at the University of South Carolina. I just think that was the thing that did him in. And, guys, I did not say anything publicly last week because I did not feel like dealing with the headache, admittedly. But when you watch the reaction shows and the Field of 64 reaction stuff, and you got different cameras on these teams, and they're all celebrating, hey, we're hosting a regional, hey, we're going to the postseason. When you've got a South Carolina baseball team that is sitting there watching this announcement, and they are celebrating going on the road for the regionals, my first thought was, would Ray Tanner's programs ever have done this? Because it used to be in Columbia that just going to the postseason, I mean, that was the minimum, bare minimum expectation. And if you didn't host, if you were not hosting postseason baseball in Columbia, you had a bad year. You had a lackluster season. You're not sitting there celebrating, acting, being happy about, well, at least we made the postseason. We're in the Field of 64. We get to go on the road. That was a bad year, right? Like, hosting a regional was the minimum. It was the minimum expectation even before South Carolina went on that run from 2010 to 12. Even before that, going on the road for the regionals, you had a bad season. Now, let's see if you can make the most of it and go win a regional, go to a Super, whatever. Doesn't mean your season's over, but it wasn't something to celebrate. It wasn't something to pat yourself on the back for. And then you've got Mark Kingston coming out saying that, I think we had a successful year. We're in the Field of 64. We had a good year. No! The standard got so lost. And it has been lost. The standard has completely been lost at the University of South Carolina when it comes to the baseball program. Because again, guys, this is not, with all due respect, this is not the football program. This is not the basketball program where you're trying to do things that have never been done before. And there's, outside of some small little pockets, there's really not a rich history or tradition or a long line of success that you can point back to. That's not the case with the baseball program. And I've said it many times now that Mark Kingston has been fired again. It was the most no-brainer decision of all time. And anybody who knows baseball, and guys, again, I'll put this out there on record. I've mentioned this. I've told this story. I'll never forget going and watching South Carolina play at Tennessee in 2022. Went to Rocky Top. Tennessee whooped Carolina for 3 straight games. Go into that game. On the drive home after the third game, I got a text. And now that he's been fired, I don't think he'll mind me sharing this conversation. We've had him on the show before. My good friend Michael Roth, one of the greatest Gamecocks, if not the greatest of all time. I received a text. I was texting back and forth with Michael Roth. Again, now that Kingston's been fired, I don't think Michael will mind me sharing this. Michael texted me and said, Mark Kingston ain't the guy. He said he might be from the standpoint of, Carolina baseball will be okay. They're always going to recruit well enough to get good players and have decent teams. But in regards to getting South Carolina baseball back to what it was when I was there, he said, Mark Kingston ain't it. And there were many others that felt very, very similarly. There were many former players, and there are many former players and legends of Gamecocks baseball. I'm talking 2010, 11, and 12 that felt the exact same way, that Mark Kingston simply was not it, guys. Again, it was the most no-brainer decision. The standard had been lost. And so now the question is, what happens next? No way Ray Tanner messes it up, right? No way he messes it up. I know many people have thrown out the names Landon Powell, Monty Lee. With all due respect, guys, and I like Landon Powell a lot, and I think Monty Lee's extremely likable. Monty Lee was a great addition to the staff. Number one, Monty Lee got fired from Clemson for a reason, guys. I don't think you go back down that road. That feels like a really, really lazy hire. I don't think you do that. I don't think the optics of that are great. Monty Lee had his shot to be a big-time head coach, and I know Clemson doesn't necessarily have the tradition that South Carolina does, but there was no excuse for Monty Lee to not win more there, and Eric Backich is showing that because he went in there and overnight, that thing has been flipped. So I would not go Monty Lee. When it comes to Landon Powell, listen, I understand that Landon Powell gets the history and the tradition and the culture and the standard, and I get it. Guys, would love to see Landon Powell added to the coaching staff in some capacity, but not as head coach. I'm sorry, guys, but loading up on D1 transfers at a Division II school and picking on the rest of D2, and I'm not trying to undermine what Landon Powell has done, but guys, if he really wanted this South Carolina job, there are a lot of D1 jobs Landon Powell could have taken and gotten some experience. He could have done like a Skylar Meade. Take a head baseball coach. Take the head coaching job at a place like Troy. Take the head coaching job at a mid-major. Show you can win at this level. You can win at that level. And then maybe, just maybe, there will be enough justification to get the opportunity. But I don't see it. I'm not saying the guy doesn't know baseball. He obviously knows baseball. But, guys, when it comes to South Carolina, I'm going to say this. South Carolina has got to get out of this mode of, man, we got to find somebody that wants to be at South Carolina. Again, this is not the football program. This is not the basketball program. This is not a project, okay? This is a program that at once, this was a top 5 job. At minimum, this was a top 10 job. And maybe it's not right now, but it should be treated as such. This is not a job for a starter coach looking to get his feet wet and gain some experience and let me figure it out for a couple years at the SEC level. This is a job that should be reserved for an elite. You saw what happened when you rolled the dice with a guy like Mark Kingston before. I know he didn't have ties to the program like a Landon Powell, but still, it'd be a roll of the dice just the same. So I think you look at Chris Pollard at Duke. I think you look at Cliff Godwin at ECU. I think you look at some other high profile. I think Skylar Meade at Troy would be worth a conversation. Guys, you look at Dan McDonald at Louisville. As crazy as it sounds, just call Tony Vitello. I don't think he's leaving. I don't think he's leaving at all, but call him. Those are the kind of conversations you should be trying to have. Even if they say no, make them. Make them say no. That's what you should be doing. It's an elite level job. It should be treated as such. All due respect to Landon Powell. Come on staff. Be the hitting coach. Be an assistant, whatever it might be. This is not a starter job. This is not the football program where it's like, and I'm sorry, guys, but just somebody just wanting to be there is not enough. And it shouldn't be enough. It should not be enough. There are plenty of folks out there that understand the history, they understand the tradition, they understand the culture, and they've actually won at a high level at this level of baseball. So the direction that Ray Tanner and South Carolina goes will be wildly interesting. But guys, the good news is this. South Carolina baseball got better today. It flat out got better today. And I'm excited to see what direction the Gamecocks go. I'm excited to see if Ray Tanner can prove some folks wrong and make a competent hire as South Carolina looks to restore what was once a proud program. Guys, that's going to do all for me. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. And make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that bell icon as well so you get notifications of when we go live and when we drop new video content, which is each and every single day. Also, guys, check out the podcast, which drops daily, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. You can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. Until next time, guys, I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we'll catch you on the other side.